Evening, guys. Don't know whether anyone actually is in here yet or not. I can hear myself somewhere and I can't work out where it's coming from. There we go. I think that's it. Hopefully you guys can hear this. Can anybody hear this? Anybody in chat? Okay. I'm going to take that as a no. Right, what I'm going to do tonight is, this is the interior girders framework for the main shed at Bovington. The bane of my life. I really don't like it. It's proving to be quite awkward, quite difficult. Sorry, I've just turned on my Space Navigator mouse, which is one of the joys of my life. It's like made life so much easier. Right, so what we're looking at is a 40 by 40 meter section. So I've split everything out into layers, into meshes. So this is so it's easier to texture later on. So this is the building trim. So that's the window frames, which is going to be panelled across the roof. It's made up of segments. The idea is that I can make different blocks, different types of blocks. So I've designed it so that it is in a 10 meter by 40 meter block. So you got 4 blocks there, you can see, and that are repeated, so it'll save on texture, space and things like that. It is a huge building. It is absolutely massive. So I've kind of struggled as how to fill it, or should I even fill it? And I've responded to people asking me the questions by going, no, I'm not going to. But what I am going to do, or I have decided to do, is make a mezzanine around it, so that if you wanted to do CQB training inside it, you could put your own buildings, but you could watch from the balcony, for lack of a better description, which I thought would be rather cool. These are quite high. I'm going to say it's 10 meters, so 33 feet off the deck, or not, yeah, 9 meters, 9 or something. 3.3 feet per meter. So 9.9 meters, 9.9 feet. Yeah. I can't make, that's not right. Anyway, I can't make sense of it. 30 odd feet, sorry. There you go, something like that, 33 feet. It's been a long day. I seem to have a lot of long days at the moment. Right, so what we're going to do is, obviously, you know, you need a ladder, you need steps, you need something to get up there. So I'm going to turn off the roof panels, I'm going to turn off the building trim, the window trim, the roof itself. I'm going to leave the deck and the frame for the moment. These are only parts of the rest of the building. I can open that if people want to see this. Oh, that's useful. I must have moved it. Yeah, okay. So much for being organised, eh? So main shed. So bring in the FBX. At least I know that's there. Right. So this is kind of what you've seen up until now. It's the walls. I've split them out into separate files just so, because it makes my life a little bit easier when I'm bringing them in to texture them. Nothing hugely exciting. Anyway, so what you can see there is I have roughly mocked out what I want my ladders to be. So I go back to model mode rather than render, and I go back on the deck. So I'm going to turn the frame off, I'm going to turn my bolts off, I'm going to turn my interior panels off, so we'll get back to that. I'm going to change to front view. Now I'm going to create a new mesh item. Why are you not double clicking, you horrible thing? Oh, it did it before. Let's move this up. I'm going to go steps. I will say my glasses are in the car at the moment, so I am going to make typos. I am going to screw it up. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a little box which is going to become our steps. Now, I can do this in several different ways, but because this is a building, because this is something that perhaps most people aren't going to look twice at, I am going to make a fairly low poly setup. So what I've done is I've Googled UK step sizes, which it looks great there, but there's no dimensions on that one. So let's go back. There we go. So I'm looking at a spacing between edge to edge of 220 and a maximum rise of 220, which to my mind should give a 45-degree angle, which is not exactly ideal for what I want at the moment. I think that I'm going to say 35. Hello, Bookfest. Grumble, 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 grumble. How about that? Right, so 0.220. I'm going to make it 50 mil, and I'm going to make it 1.25 meters wide because we all know the stairs in armor are crap. So let's just drag that. Yeah. I have a CAD background, which makes me lean towards precision over everything, but I've discovered that precision and armor 3 don't always go hand in hand. There's a certain amount of bodging, so I've just moved that to roughly where I want it to be. So that's the first step. So I'm going to drop that by 0.22, so that gives us the, no, it used to go down. That gives us the first height. So minus 0.22 minus, scheisse. Right, so let's redo that so we're down to the right size. Now, I said I'm going to do this in fairly low poly. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to literally leave it as a block shape, and then I'm going to make it a little bit more interesting in substance. But to do that, I need to unwrap this object shape at the moment, and this is going to be a bit of a pain for me because I don't normally do this in one window. So This is Modo Indie, by the way. I used to have full Modo, and there's a long story that goes with it, but it's a real pain in the bum. I bought it off a reseller and went to upgrade it, and it turns out the reseller had resold my license several times over. So, moral of the story is always buy the genuine stuff from the primary provider. Right, so I'm going to unwrap that. I like Modo because it's simple. It works well in my workflow. I've been using it for a long time now. I did used to use Max commercially, and it just got too expensive, and the workflow always messed with my head. Right. I tend to unwrap as I go, largely because it saves me time later on. But when I come to repeat things, like I'm going to do with these steps, I guess we can do this in an array. It probably makes more sense to do it in an array. Duplicate array. So I normally use. I've got 3 screens. I normally do across 3 screens, and streaming is a new thing for me, so please be kind. So let's say 10, 10, 0. So sorry, 10, 10, 1. So we're going to do 10 replicants across here and 10 down. The offset x is going to be minus 0.22. It's going to be minus 0.22. And it's going to be 0 in the offset. We don't want any jitter. So I'm going to go apply, and that's screwed that up. That's why. Duh. So for some reason it is offsetting, it is not dropping the height, which makes no sense to me, because Z is the thing away from us. Why are you being a pain in the bum? Oh, one thing it's shown is I'm going to need more than 10. That's a pain. Come on. So it's not messing with the thing, which is a bit odd. Crap it. Front. See, this is where sometimes things like this are actually easier in O2, because you can then identify each individual bloody object. Alright. I did say I'm going to grumble a lot, so go back to the front view. So minus 0.22. See, the step angle is going to change. See, that's it's then at 45. I'm not happy with that. I don't want that. So what I am going to do, because I want 3 tiers, I am going to go there, and I'm going to scale it. I'm just going to quickly re-unwrap that because what I'll show in a sec why that is. Because we've got one object there. Because I've extended it, it's going to take up a different amount of texel space on the UV map. So what I want to do is if I go unwrap, you can now see that this face is actually thicker than that now. So if I go back and unwrap those, they're now equal faces. I'm going to stitch them together. I'm just going to go opaque vertical. And that didn't want to do that because I've done it in edge mode rather than polygon mode, which packs individual shapes, not joined polygons. Right, so let's get back to this. So I'm going to select that, copy, paste, go back to move. I'm going to move that to there, and I'm going to move it minus 0.22. So we're getting slightly better angle. So I want to keep the separation the same. I want to keep the 2-inch step. Grumble, grumble, grumble. The pressure, I'm being watched. But I have two, sorry Bookfest, I was concentrating. When I have 3 screens, unless I have 2 screen man corner in the kitchen. At least you're not far away from the fridge, which is my curse. I really need to get away from the fridge. I'm contemplating moving my office from, I have a 3-story house. It's a tall, thin sort of townhouse. And I'm contemplating moving my office from the middle floor, which I guess would normally be the lounge for a lot of people, which is across the hall from the kitchen. And I am far too close to the kitchen. So the advantage of living in the house that I do is you get plenty of exercise going up and down the stairs. So this is now starting to be a little bit better. So all I'm doing is actually copying and pasting faces in and moving them relative to the top point. I should have done this with, or could have done this with an array, but I don't know why it was not playing well tonight, but sugar. So I'm moving off the snap points instead, which is giving me more of an effect that more of the sort of effect that I wanted. But I've screwed up because I've moved things. So what I'm going to do is they've gone out of alignment. Grab that. I'm going to grab the corner of that, match it to that corner in this box. Thank you. Thank you. A section. Yeah, hiya, mate. So I'm going to leave it on the X position. I don't want to change it on the Y. So there we go. So we're now in alignment. We're back on the shape that I wanted. So front. Now what I'm gonna do, because if you think about a mezzanine floor, so if you see these sorts of decks and whatever, the floor always, I don't know whether I can actually get a really good picture. It always ends one step above. Now, if I grab my ruler tool, I really need my glasses. I can't be bothered to go and get my glasses because it's absolutely peeing down outside, and my car is not on my drive, it's actually in the street at the moment. I have my friend's Range Rover on my drive, so we're going to take a look at it in the morning. He's got an electrical problem, which I don't know why he seems to think I'm going to do any better than him at fixing it, but there we go. Right, 22 meters, which actually works out really well, surprisingly well, given that our step height is, I wish I could say I planned this, but it's not. Our step height is 0.22 meters, so I'm quite impressed by that, even though I perhaps shouldn't be. Wow, okay, that's kind of funky. So right, what I'm going to do is I am going to make this this last step that we've got here our mezzanine bit, our sort of landing, for lack of a better description. So let's say I'm going to move that -2 meters. So that's 2.2 top. How it's best to do this. Yeah. Front. So I'm going to just mirror this for a second. Duplicate mirror. Make sure my point's there. So I know that's 2.2 above. So what I am going to do is grab the polygons, move it minus 0.44, which is twice the height. So that gives me my position. And I'm just going to go back into my deck clod for the moment. See how when I did these earlier, I know that they're in the right place. So what I want to do is just go to slice. Oh, mate, section. I don't qualify for mature audience, so you know, it's just that I get told off if I swear too much. And my friend asked me not to swear because his kid wants to watch. But I'll tell you now, his kid knows more swear words than I do. And I'm 48 years old. Right. So, yeah. How best to do this as well. I'm trying to find an easy way to do guides without getting into expanding weird and wonderful things. Without stretching and moving, because these things are only ever going to be guides. so I don't really mind eyeballing things, but there we go. Let's go back to the steps. I'm never sure how these are supposed to join. See, sort of mezzanine steps like that. But this is kind of doing the full circle back thing. Do you know what I mean? Am I making any sense whatsoever? '72 was a wonderful year. It's great when you look for reference and you can't find crap that you want, actually, isn't it? Many years ago, I actually designed a warehouse stacking system for a company, and I can't even remember how I did that. But it was like Meccano. It was brilliant. I loved that job. I'd do it again tomorrow, actually. See, the problem is I want the stack to stay roughly in the same alignment, and I'm not sure that's possible. Do you know what I mean? Am I making any sense? I'm obviously not, but anyway. Yeah, so let's move that over there to roughly the same sort of position. Yeah. One thing I don't like about Modo is it's sort of lumpy zoom. It doesn't smooth zoom anywhere. I'm sure someone's going to see this and go, oh, there's much better ways to do it. There probably is. I am not the world's greatest modeler. I am good at certain things, but I am not the best in the world at anything. Although goofing off, I do seem to have at least a silver medal at the moment, because I'm doing bugger all. During this lockdown, I really need to get another job. I picked a job up just before the lockdown started, went to sign the contract, and before I could send it back, the company decided that they didn't need me. And it's been a very difficult couple of months, but now lockdown's easing, I really need to get my shit together and get out and sort out a proper job. The problem is I'm going out at the same time that millions of other people are. My friend, he and his wife were working for the same company, and which side are we going to go? Let's go that side. And his wife got called in Told not to go in on Monday because they were going to stage people coming back, which seemed quite legitimate and quite fine. And she went in this morning and was sat down in a conference room and was told, we're terribly sorry, but thanks to COVID, you no longer have a job. We're making you redundant. There's now a big question of how legal that is. I don't know. I'm not an HR specialist. All I know is that most of the HR people I know or have come across in my life are not very nice people usually. They seem to enjoy sacking people. They seem to live for sacking people. And I say that as one of my best friend's wife is an HR director, and she was an HR director at the firm that I worked at a while back, and it was a thoroughly unpleasant experience working with her. Socially, she's a wonderful person at work. Hitler in 4-inch green spiked heels. Yeah, section. It's the same round here really, with the hiring and firing practices. I mean, my mates, one of my mates' companies, they had a policy as a girl that had just finished working for them. She'd resigned on good terms, and she'd gone to a new company, and the new company said, "Oh well, we don't need you now," and refused to furlough her, or couldn't furlough her, or chose not to, or whatever, and really screwed it up for her. So my mate's company actually hired her back for the duration of the furlough, and then she resigned after the furlough. After the furlough stuff came up, because it was just a really crappy thing to do to somebody. And I get it's hard. I get it's a difficult time for everybody, but that's just a shitty way to deal with somebody. Right, okay, so what am I doing now? They pride themselves on being very ethical. They're a green packaging firm, and they do like an employee shared ownership scheme that this girl wasn't part of, but I guess it's kind of like shares. I'm not entirely sure how it works. But you can invest part of your wages into the business and you get like voting shares or something. I don't know. So this should look a little bit better. What I'm trying to do is I should have probably extruded this, but I'm trying to make the deck a single piece. So I'm just going to grab these verts. Someone's just pinged me in a private message to saying there's a much better way to do this. What's going on there then? Alright. Geometry, polygon, align. So that should have aligned all the faces in the same place, but it hasn't. So let's grab that again. Because I've moved the vertices, I've not merged them. Right, so there we go. So that's fixed that. But I don't know whether you can see this. I've either got multiple faces in the same object, just here, because it's showing through as one. I don't want that, so I'm going to triangulate it. Geometry, polygon, unify. So this is any faces that are on top of each other will be joined. So it's not aligned, it's not done it. So let's delete those. Right. So we've got another stray face there. Now it doesn't sound, well, it doesn't look like it'd cause too much of a problem because you can't see it. It's just annoying. It's an extra face. But in reality, when you come to bake it, because it's joining edges together, you may discover that you get baking artifacts. So there'd be like, you know, odd little seams in weird places, or the colouring's a little bit wrong or something. So it's important to keep them out. So I just stretch that out so it sits underneath there, largely because the stair girders are going to join the edge faces. Perhaps don't need to close that, but it'll come into shadow later. So I think you can see where I'm going with this anyway. So what I want to do now is I'm just going to go to wireframe again because it lets me grab that. So once we've got one landing done, we can do the others, but I just want to get it so it's roughly in place. So you can see what I'm doing, and I can see what my next steps are going to be. So I'm just going to move this over and snap it into that corner. If I go back to the front view, you can see what I'm trying to do and match the height, but the steps are now slightly out of sync, as much because of the way that it's offset. See, I really wanted it to be exactly underneath there, which means I'm going to have to move the mid step back. Just bear with me. So what did we say? We said it was 22 meters, didn't we? So 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, alright. See, that makes sense going from that step then, but why have I got extra steps if I've just returned that around? This is messing with my head. See, I don't get on with Blender. The thing is, the thing that confused me is they've changed the interface so much in the later versions, and it's just really confusing. It didn't make sense to me in the slightest. The tutorials, I should say, didn't make sense to me in the slightest. And I guess that is definitely going to be a barrier for a lot of people, me included. But Mike Phoenix has dropped Max because he's sick and tired of it crashing and screwing up, and gone over to Blender as well. I wish him well with it, because he's doing stuff in there that I can't do. Well, stick with it. It's really rewarding. I love it. I've been doing it for years, but yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to work out what I'm going to do next, and I'm trying to be consistent with the platforms, but I don't appear to be succeeding, because I want the landing. I want essentially that spar to be exactly the same. Because when I bring in the frames, see, when I move it over a little bit, it's going to be right on that building frame. See, terrains is better than the modeling, because at least with Terrain Builder there are better tutorials, and I've just started doing that. Yeah, Scorch. It's just the interface is really weird compared to some of the tutorials. You kind of feel a little bit lost. You've got to really stick with it. And I paid for Modo. I'm going to keep using Modo. I'm going to get my money's worth out of it. I am from Lancashire originally, and I will get my value. Alright. I'm just going to have to accept that the platform's going to be different. Yeah, Bookfest. If you download QGIS, QGIS, there is, and Google for QGIS game tools. The guys that made the Plopper, which is an awful name for an add-on, the Plopper add-on that lets you work in Terrain Builder like Map Painter used to be. It's evolved from Map Painter. They've done that, and they've got some fantastic tutorials about getting real-world data in. That's definitely worth a look. It's helped me anyway. But yeah, modeling, there's some fantastic tutorials, but they're all confusing in my opinion. Or they're more confusing than they really need to be, I should say. But the problem is the software moves so bloody quickly as well. You get comfortable in one set and they'd go and change it. But you can't argue with the fact that Blender is free, and what it does is bloody amazing for a free bit of software. Right, so if that's the floor height there, it's about 2.5. Well, if you go, I'm assuming you found the PMC tactical tutorials for the terrain stuff. Their ultimate tutorial is brilliant because it's got links to everything. I say that saved my arse on a number of occasions. Yes, Ginger, mate, I am. I'm trying to work out how to do a mezzanine staircase consistently. Assuming you've just joined. So that's the framework of the building. It's 10-meter high deck. I'm trying to get the steps in. Speaking of frustrated, I gotta go price a job soonish and I can't be asked. Nah, leave it until tomorrow. Everything can wait. Only until it can't. I've got some stuff to do myself in terms of job hunting and quotes for things, and I am struggling with motivation. I just can't be asked with it at the moment. Everything seems to be harder than it really needs to be right now. Yeah, I'm going to have to bite the bullet and just accept this, aren't I? The difference in heights is a bit annoying, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty good. Right, so how do we do the surrounds? Excuse me, I'll just bring this back over here. I'm trying to find some pictures of mezzanine edges, which I think that's probably as good as it's going to get, actually. Come on, load. So it's just kind of a box thing, isn't it? So I wonder, is it worth so that's 50 mil thick at the moment. So if I change that down, minus 0.2, see, that's made a right mess there. So I'm just going to cut that out for a sec, put it into a new LOD. See, this is one of the tools that I absolutely adore in Modo that's saved me hundreds of hours of faffing. Because I used to do this by hand, or used to use cutting tools and all sorts. Polygon, merge, saw one face now. Mesh edit. What is it? Polygon, polygon. Inset. 15 millimeters. Grab that face. I don't know whether you can actually see this if I zoom in. It's just inset the entire face by the 15 mil that I specified. And I'm now going to go to mesh edit, extrude. And I am going to push it up, but I only want one side. I'm going to push it up 200 mil. So I don't know whether that's coming across as well as it should. Let's turn the deck off. So this is where the Space Mouse comes in, or 3D Navigator. It's a wonderful little tool. So it's now a concave box, if that helps. See you, Buck. Sorry, mate. I'm having to turn my head almost 90 degrees to watch on my third screen, while you only have the two stuck in the corner of the kitchen. Nah. See you later, mate. Thanks for popping on. Anyway, appreciate the visit. Right, back to this. So I've established my wall thickness as being 15mm plate. So what I'm going to do is just grab that face, because that's the height that I want. So I'm going to copy it. New mesh. Put back to the other one, and I'm going to put this back in the steps layer. Wrong view. I'm going to turn my deck on purely as a guide. Now I am pretty sure this is a 35-degree down angle, but I'm going to prove myself wrong now. No. Yes, I am wrong, only slightly. When I did the research last night, when I was looking at steps and ladders and whatever, so that is 35. Okay. I did notice that there isn't actually any proper guidelines for how thick or the angle of a ladder or something, which I was a bit surprised about. Oh, that's great, isn't it? I've stretched the face over somehow, and it shouldn't be like that, so screw it, hang on. So it's just moved everything to the 0 plane. Grab that. I've wasted my time, man. I could have just grabbed the reference shape. Duh. Shoot me now. So back onto polygon selection. Thicken. I'm gonna go 15mm. So all that's done is bulk that out by 15mm. I don't know if that's actually as easily visible, but so I'm going to go back. I'm going to do a little bit of unwrapping just because I've been negligent so far. So when I unwrap these, I take the faces that are going to be sort of the most visible that you're going to see the join on, because the assumption is you're not going to be looking up, going up the stairs, which I guess you might be, but you can see that top edge there That's slightly worrying. Oh, cock. That's why. It's thickened it out. When I thickened it, it's tapered it. So I'm just undoing the tapering. So 15 millimeters. The scale is the thing that I screwed up. There we go. It's now square. So as I said, I'm selecting the top faces that you would see if you're walking up and down the thing. Excuse me. So when you have that seam, when I put that seam in Substance Painter, I am going to hopefully get a nice clear edge when I do an edge damage setup. So selecting edges, select the joining edge. This is why I like Modo. It's just so easy to unwrap stuff in it. It can be a bit fiddly and a bit tedious. There are specialist tools for doing it. Mike uses a UV unwrapping tool that I've got to say I kind of thought was a bit like magic, but there's Rhizome UV or something is the newer version of what he's got, and it's a bit expensive. Yeah, Scotch. I think what's happening with Blender is they're kind of approaching a lot of all the other tools, or looking at the other tools and going, what's the good bit out of this? You know, does that work best? And they're putting it into Blender, and eventually I think Blender will blow away everything else on the market. As much because it is free, as it is how good as how good it actually is. I will learn English at some point. It won't be soon. I've been trying for 48 years and still fucking it up. So, sorry, fluffing it up. I must stop swearing. Right. I wish to keep them. So one of the issues with Modo is a lot of it's contextual. The menus seem to be contextual depending on selection modes, and that kind of screws me up occasionally. Right, I've just done that because I want to change the X position. I want to get it in line, but I didn't want to faff around trying to eyeball it, so you can see that I've made me proper shape now. Doesn't look that. Front, won't we? So I am gonna go polygons. Do the same thing again. Because you've got to bolt something together, haven't you? So right, so copy that, paste it. I'm going to end up destroying a lot of this anyway. When I come to unwrap it, I'm going to basically anything that could be mirrored, I'm going to grab. But for the sake of what we're doing here at the moment, so I said 15 mil, and that's 40, so it's. That doesn't make sense, unless I've got my sizes wrong. was pretty sure I made the stairs 1.25 wide. But anyway, oh no, I did it extra, right? Because I hadn't mirrored it. I'd actually just done it. So you can see where we're going with that one. So what I'm going to do now is, because hopefully all of this should mirror down. So once we've done this staircase here, this landing, that landing, this piece of stairs becomes a component, and we can just copy and paste it down. That's the theory. That's my hope. Again, let's just look at this. Oh, there's a text message. Oh, crap. Oh, well, that's my mate just lost his job at Jaguar. He works for DHL, and they've just announced they're going to lose 2,200 jobs, and he was told this afternoon. Oh, great. That's lovely, isn't it? Do you call it stair rail? Or banisters, I guess. Handrail. Right, so dimensions. Right, there you go. Yeah. Well, according to this, it needs to be 90 to 110 centimeters, and because everyone runs around in armor like the pissed, we're going to make it higher. So we use the 110 off the step. Modo again. Front. So I'm just going to grab this polygon. I'm going to copy, paste. So off the top of the steps, so let's go 110. Duh. That shows I need to move my other banisters down, which doesn't really, it's not that big a deal. Handrail, because I eyeballed those. As I say, so much information available on the internet now. Sorry, I'm going to sound really old saying this, but it's great. There's so much information, because it used to be, after when I was working as an engineer, I used to have to look up all this crap on through books and catalogues, and it was some of the weirdest crap you've ever seen. We used to have big libraries full of it. Right. See, strangely, I still use Haynes manuals, but my godkids think I'm completely insane for doing it. But I like them. I'm old enough to like having that physical copy of something. And when the power goes out, or you're struggling under a car or a motorcycle or something, and you know you got a torch and you're there for bloody hours, it's nice to know that the batteries aren't going to run out on your book. Well, yeah, there is something about a book as well, a proper, sit down and read a proper book. but I've been a digital person pretty much all my life. Balls that. This bloody snap setting. It's finding too many objects to snap. It's the problem when working in 3D, you do lose some perspective of where you're going. You know, it's easy to lose things into a different plane. Right, so that can stay the same, that needs to be fine. Right, because it's still only 15mm thick, and I can't remember ever seeing a 15mm thick banister. What I'm going to do is just grab that polygon, use the scale tool, because we're not doing anything precision. And I'm going to put it up to, let's say 45mm, just under 2 inches. It's pretty good for a steel rail, isn't it? So that's going to be 300%. So yeah, I think that looks alright. So I'm going to say, what do you reckon, 1 inch uprights? Or is that 2 inch? Do you reckon those are 2? Not entirely sure how. Yeah, 2 inch, 50mm. Okay. I've just used the edge of the other box to provide an anchor. So it puts it somewhere in the ballpark. So the question is how we're going to step these up. So it makes sense to have one at the end here. So let's move that over there. So I want it to be on the outside of the plate. So that's 2 inches. That we need to expand the banister a little bit as well. So let's move that banister over there. Back to resize, or scale rather. How many we got in here? Who have we got in here still? Oh, scorching section still. Okay. I need a bigger crowd. My ego's too small. My ego's not been buffed enough. Yeah, it should do. I still think that's actually, the 50 mils a little bit too much. When I used to work at Chevron, I was doing some Chevron Aerospace years ago now. I was writing, drawing CAE, computer-aided engineering programs for machining centers, and I used to spend a lot of time staring at the simulation, and my boss used to catch me all the time and have a go at me, and he never quite understood what I was doing. When I was watching, I was trying to understand how it all went together, and I think that looks a bit too chunky, to be quite honest. See, I reckon that's 35 mil rather than 50. I reckon that's 2 inches. I can make it a tube, but it comes down to polygons. When you factor in all this other stuff, so let's just turn all these back on, and you start looking at. So let's go back to that for a second. So if I grab all of these, see, that's 17,484 polygons for that, and that's not even come close. Now, yeah. But you've got to remember, there's only so many faces and so many sections it can draw in game. So this is going to be mirrored over. So whatever's in this, let's say it stops at 20,000 faces, and you go into like the mirror. So there's 40,000 faces for the first section. There's going to be 8 sections just for this shed. So what's 40,000 times 4? It's 160,000, isn't it? So 160,000 faces for the building before you do anything else. And probably because of the way, yeah. Or 16,000, sorry, yeah. It's late, I'm tired, I'm whatever. I haven't got a clue. And I'm not that good at mental arithmetic, so nah. The other issue, I mean, everyone says performance in Modo, in Armour, is about faces. It's not. It's about the vertices. It's just the way that the game engine actually works. It's vertices, sections, and faces in that order. So that's 21,005 verts. And when you get into DirectX again, because of the way that DirectX draws polygons, sharp and smooth edges come into this as well. So if it's smooth edged, it treats it as one polygon with multiple vertices. But if it's sharp edged, it treats each triangle, because it doesn't do quads, each triangle as one separate face if it's sharp edged, and the bend angle is, or the join angle is less than a certain value. So if you've got like a cylinder made of like 8 sides and it's smooth, it takes less resources, or it takes less resources to draw that than it does to do the sharp angles version, believe it or not. It's slightly weird. It's something to do with the lighting engine. Someone explained it to me years ago, and I didn't understand it then. I'm not going to pretend to be the expert now, but I was told how to do something to get the best optimum performance, and I've been doing it for 10 plus years. But the other one that everyone screws up that nobody gets right is sections. So if I go into this is something you perhaps don't need to know about. If I go right, so if you go down here, see this, I don't know whether you can see the cursor bit around it. There's 17 sections in my first LOD. And a section is the number of times a texture is called. So each of these represents a section. So in Armour, if you have one texture and one RV map, that's one section. But you can have the same texture with a different RV map that then creates another section. Case in point, this down here. So low res 1, sheet 1, and that uses the low res 1 RV map, but the one above it uses the Chrome, so it's a separate section. So it then has to load that and uses it loads the map again with a new RV map, renders it in a completely different way, and that just takes more resources. And if you have too many sections, it will obviously slow your computer down, either the CPU or the GPU, depending on what your setup is and emulation and blah blah blah. So when I do these models, I try and keep as many faces and sections down as possible. Again, let's just go into this. This is the UV editor. So if I go on to a different LOD, what you can see in that is I've tried to group things onto one texture, so that will then become one section. So all this is up here. That's the structural steelwork frames that you've seen. That's the roof and wall. That's the wall panels external, and that's the wall panel internal. Now in reality, all of those are just going to be on one texture tile, and there's bolts there. There's a high detail bolt that I can plonk down. So when this loads in game, that'll be one section. But it's looking like there's going to be another section for the deck, and steps and ladders and things, and then there's going to be another one for the windows and building and trim and the roof tiles. But this will be done with a multi-map material, which again presents other issues and things like that. So you kind of have to plan. But what a lot of people screw up or don't realise is the section count. I've seen people put models in game with like 130, 140 sections. The worst I've seen was over 1,040, and they were wondering why it was lagging the game when it came on screen. And it's easily fixed. A lot of it's easily fixable, and you can get around a lot of it by just doing a little bit of planning ahead. So I'll stop lecturing now. It's one of my big bugbears. People don't quite get it. Right, so that's at 50 mil, so I want it at 35. Come on, Mr. Maths. Come on, section. You're good at this. It's going to be roughly 75%, I think. There's a lovely measuring tool in O2, and I wish it was in here, but the ruler tool's not bad. It's just a little bit quirky to work with. So 37.4 or 37.5 is 75%, so perhaps it should have been 70. Um, 50 mil. I want the percentage of 35 mil out of 50 mil. There's like a 30-second delay on this as well. So there you go. It was 70 mil, 70% rather. Cheers, mate. I used to work with a guy when I was at Airbus that he was amazing for mental arithmetic. I'm convinced he was autistic. He said he was tested and proved not to be. He was just a smart ass. That was his excuse anyway. And you could give him any maths problem whatsoever. I mean, literally anything, and he'd work it out in his head. Before you could type it in, he'd actually have told you. It got to the point where nobody bothered doing any calculations or checking his calculations because he was always fucking right. It's really annoying. But he was a stress design engineer, and ironically, he had a nervous breakdown and eventually a heart attack at about 31. He was a lovely fellow. I left Airbus in 2004, and he'd been on sick leave for about a year at that point. But I tell you, when he wasn't in the office, we all bloody noticed. Right. Because I want to reduce the amount of faces again, like as I said. I'm going to just move this, let's say 1.5 meters. And because we've got the height for it, if I put this with the front edge, that was a good hit, wasn't it? We get the placement of the stair rod. So I'm going to move that down. Because I want it to coincide with the bolts of where the step would be. So I'm probably going to struggle when I try and do this centrally, because 1.5 and 2.2 don't divide or coincide with each other at any useful time. if that makes any sense. So we're better off doing it off steps, aren't we, really? So it's a gap of 3 steps. Bloody snap. Right, well, we're going to bodge that. It's going to disappear into the thing just to get the height. So this is cutting through the frame, which I'm not that bothered about. We can move it out later anyway. So I don't think that actually looks too bad, do you? With the 4 bars, I don't think it'll actually, when that's mirrored over. Yeah. See, I'm happy you screwed up the typing there, because I am terrible at typing. I edit almost everything I type. I hit enter before my brain does the spell check. So I'm glad it's just not me. Right. So next over. Oh, I'm the same. I'm ridiculously bad. So I use a 1.5 offset again, because that's gonna give me excuse of put the bar around the corner. So it shouldn't look too ridiculous. When I grab this, have I done that right? I think I've balls that as well. No, because I'll just use that as a pivot. It's offsetting slightly. -90. 0, 0. The foot pads are not going to be touching at the moment, so not going to be touching the structural steel underneath. You see how it's stood off. If I go top, see that pad, that line of that pad needs to be touching that line there. It's something I really should snap, but I'm just going to eyeball it. So this is the other one. When I come to fillet this, I don't necessarily actually have to use the tool. I can construct it. It's one of the things I actually love about 3D stuff is solving the problems. I was never hugely good at math, or maths rather. I've been Americanized. But I did enjoy the problem solving. And when I went to work as an engineer, a lot of the things that engineers do is calculated for safety reasons. So you use a set chart and things like that. And I found it rather boring. But the design engineering CAD construction, I always found really interesting, because when you were drawing objects, you had to work out how they all went together, and how, well, what I learned later was that you had to understand how they were going to be made as well. My first few engineering designs, my boss came, patted me on the head, and said, you know, congratulations, it looks amazing, but how the fuck are you going to make it in the real world? And that was a big revelation and a huge embarrassment for me at the time. But he was quite sympathetic, and he was actually a really decent bloke. And Gordon Park, he was a really lovely fellow. 70 odd years old, been working in engineering for years. So this is where it's going to have to change, isn't it? Just trying to work out how to put the pad in, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to cheat a little bit and move the offset out. Yeah, he'd worked in every industry and done literally everything. And he spent absolutely ages teaching me. And he was a really, really nice guy. And one day he didn't come into work, so we all just thought he was sick. And his wife called in apparently later on to ask where he was. And again, here's another one. He apparently pulled into a petrol station and had a heart attack and carked it. That's really fucking depressing. Everyone's going to think I'm a morose bastard talking about this all the time. Right. Yeah, this delay thing is killing me. doesn't look right. Something's gone wrong there. Yeah. Yeah. Nobody's. Help yourself, mate. Just crack on. It may be a little bit disjointed in the replies, but yeah, ask yourself. Ask away. There is a little bit of a delay. Pregnant pause waiting for the questions. Dun, 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 dun. This, have I ever toyed with the idea of making the Watchkeeper 2 separate UAVs attached to each other? One for camera, one for the pilot. Yes. There is a video, an old video. If you can find RKSL Studios on YouTube, there's a video that we did in Armour 1 when I was working with a guy called Gary. He was UNN. Way before BIS introduced any UAV system, Gary, I gave him a spec to do something, and Gary created what I am still going to say is the best UAV system ever. And it was a 2-player setup. It was a pain in the arse because there's an issue with locality. If you've ever seen that in multiplayer, if you get if you jump in the Wildcat, for example, and you have one player flying and one player on the turret, there you go. Okay, so you do know what I'm talking about. So you get that little problem with syncing of stuff. It's caused by the netcode, and it's caused by the RV engine, as I understand it. This is the way it was explained to me. So if I'm wrong, and somebody from BIS hears this, I am bitching a little bit, but bear with me. My understanding is that it is a leftover of the OFP code from way back when, because the jump from OFP to Armour 2 to Armour 3 has been more of an evolution than it has been a revolution each time. So there's a lot of legacy stuff still in the RV3 or Armour 3 engine, whatever you want to call it. And that part of that is the netcode issue. I've heard a lot of people complain about it. I have yet to find anybody that has got a proper fix for it. But UNN did some fantastic scripting that reduced the lag down. But UNN did this video in Armour 1. It was with the mock-up Predator, actually, Predator 1 that I made. Sorry, there we go. And you could switch between pilot and player, as you can do in now. But in multiplayer environments, you could actually genuinely have 2 people flying it. And it was how he's done it. I've still got the source code somewhere, but how he did it, it wasn't a classic 2-player plane. I mean, there's a version of the Reaper that I play in the group that I play with, Darvi, Drunken Reckless Veterans, that I configured as a plane rather than a UAV, and you had to get in it and fly it. And that works fairly well. There are some problems with it, but like it works the same as any two-player plane, but you've still got the network sync issue, network lag issue. So you get the juddering and whatever, and it makes it a bit unpleasant. And a lot of the guys that I know, as much as they like having UAVs in, they don't see the point of having dedicated UAV crews, because you spend a lot of time sat around doing nothing or just watching, and it's not exciting. Which I get, I fully understand. But I need to sort the Reaper out, actually. I think it's only the damage system that I've got to do left. I'm not finished that. But yeah, yes, to answer the question properly, yes, I have thought about it. I don't know that there is a solution that works for everybody. I'd like to think that BIS in whatever next plans they have, is one of their priorities going to be netcode, but it'll be good to see the back of the RV engine one way or another. So it's getting closer to what I want. I just tried to alt and to tab into a different bloody window. Yeah, I've heard lots of different stories. I wish Bugfast was still here, actually, because I think he's heard a lot of the similar ones that I have. I don't know how true these rumours of Armour 4 are. I don't know how much I can say without dropping somebody in the shit, really, from what I know, but there seems to be an awful lot going on inside BIS right now, and nobody that I know will either tell me or seems to have proper knowledge. I'd love to get a look at what they're planning to do, the roadmap, not necessarily the code or the artwork, but because there's a few things I'd like to have answered about the future. But I don't know. Looking at the way that DayZ's gone, I'm not too sure that Infusion is ready to do something like Armour. And I think that's pretty much what Yoris or somebody, one of the BIS developers, have actually said. It's not quite the right engine for this at this time. So I don't know. Well, that's the problem. Is Enfusion is actually a hybrid. It's sort of, if you Google it, it's actually, the wiki article says it's a hybrid of the Enforce and RV engine. So it's a fusion of those engines, which is where Enfusion comes from. But yeah, there's definitely some holdovers, because as I understand it, the model system's the same and so on. Which I think is a bit of a mistake, but in terms of transferring assets quickly, because again, there's apparently a story behind the DayZ stuff, and Dean Hall's departure from BIS. By all accounts, it wasn't exactly the most pleasant departure. There was some intrigue and issue around it. I'm not going to say that I really know anything, but there are stories out there. But it basically, they discovered that they had to, well, to get what they wanted, they had to remake pretty much most of the game, which is why it ended up on standalone, which I think was the right choice in the end. But again, I don't own DayZ either, so it's not how I choose to play, and my group of friends now tends to be modders, like Darvi. A lot of the guys that I hang around with and still talk to, I've been part of Darvi since 2009. And most of the guys are sim professionals in some way, shape, or form, or I know them through work as opposed to play. You know, I don't tend to. Right, sorry. I'm now trying to debate whether I might as well just cut that. See that bit intruding into there. That's one of the things I love about Modo is the slice tools. The billion stuff is crap, but slice is brilliant. See, the step is, I'm gonna end up breaking this bloody thing around somebody's head in a minute. Calculation for the step's height is wrong. And the way that I've done it, I'm gonna have to extend that down even further, which is a bit annoying. I've screwed up the calculation. It should be, I wanted 3 even levels, but it's not going to happen that way. Damn it. Grab that point and move it to there. So that brings us down to something closer. So bring it down one more. There's the levels. But I'm half a meter longer. And I'm no longer. Let's move it back. Yeah, the C-tab stuff, it seems to set pos something into the cockpit and you can jump between them. It's not something that I've played with very much. I don't particularly like that concept because again that brings up other issues. And I don't like adding dependencies onto my add-ons. I don't mind making compatibility stuff, but it's like I don't use Ace. Darvi, the groups that I play with, the 2 groups that I play with, don't use Ace. It causes problems. It changes base classes and things like that. and we've just had all sorts of problems with it, so we decided not to use it. Likewise, we don't use Cup because some of the guys' internet isn't brilliant, and we don't want to download like 16 gig of stuff just to use one island. And the other issue that we have is compatibility as well in terms of like balance and things like that. But going back to the CTAB thing, I like the CTAB idea, and there's something that somebody showed me a while ago, and I don't think it was related to the CTAB stuff, but it was like there's a bombing system that somebody produced, and it includes a waypoint and autopilot. I think it might be the same guy that did CTAB. I'm not sure now. And I really like the idea of that. And we did look at playing with that for a while, but one of our guys just couldn't get it to work on his system. It just kept crashing. So I don't know quite what happened there. But if one of us can't use it, none of us use it. That's just the way that our group works. But also, to be fair, our lads tend to make a lot of stuff for themselves. Not as a boast, it's just a case of they're much like me. They just like to make their own stuff. But yeah, we need a proper UAV system, like dual control system. I'm completely with you on the need for it. Oh, that's a pleasant surprise. Still one down. That needs to be there, doesn't it? To mirror the other stuff. Okay, maybe that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Sorry, I'm a bit of a rambling answer and off topic and whatever. Yeah, it would be great if they did it. I'm just not entirely convinced it's doable in the current engine or in their current plans. I hope I'm wrong. I desperately hope I'm wrong. Right, so that should allow me to grab everything else and finish it. So let's get rid of that reference. Oh dear. Right, 10:30. How long's this stream been running? Anyone tell me? 2 hours, right. Right, I think I am going to sack it for tonight, if you guys don't mind, unless you've got anything else you want me to do. Hey, section, I'm glad I'm glad to make you moderator something because I have no idea. I'm glad you know the commands I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to sack it for tonight. What I may do tomorrow is rip out my office and put it in my downstairs room tomorrow. But if it's peeing down, because I want to lob everything into the garden, all the rubbish into the garden and take it out round the back. No, say, I'm happy to answer the questions. It's not a problem. Anyway, I may unwrap this tomorrow if it's raining. I don't know whether I'll stream that through the day because I don't know whether you guys are going to be around through the day. It's interesting, but you can go back and watch it. or I might leave it till the evening. I'm not entirely sure. If anyone wants me to do a Q&A stuff, if you ping me, either grab me on Discord or something, we'll do that. I don't know, I could do that one night. I can answer your questions. I can show you how to fix stuff or how some things work. Right now, I have no idea really what to stream. I get asked a lot of questions, and I'm kind of trying, when I'm waffling, I'm trying to answer some of those. When you guys ask me questions, I'll answer as much as I possibly can. I don't know. I don't know what's interesting. I don't tend to watch many streams myself. I used to watch Curie's, but I used to get frustrated because I wanted to think he was doing something differently than I would have done. But anyway, right. Well, 2 hours to make a set of stairs and to waffle a bit. I'm hoping you enjoyed it anyway, but we'll do it again. Yeah, the learning curve is quite scary. I've been doing this since 2002, and I got really lucky early on in that. I don't know how long you guys have been around, but if you remember in OFP there was a guy called Colonel Clink. His name was Bob Watt. He must be in his 70s by now because he was in his 50s back then. Foot Munch was another. The pair of them, I joined the Operation Flashpoint Falklands mod. Flashpoint in the Falklands, I think, was the official name, but it was just FLK by the end of it, or Falklands. Yeah. They basically, the pair of them said, look, I'm not going to make anything for you, and it really wasn't what I'm after, but I'll teach you how to do it, or I'll tell you how to do it. If you've got a question, ask me. And I've always operated the same thing. So if you guys want to know how to do something, please just ask. It'll make the stream more interesting anyway. But I'm quite happy to do that and to answer questions. I do get nagged to death for models. Will I make something? Or more recently, people have produced models and said, I want some help putting these in game. And the one time that I was naive enough to say yes, I thought I'd be, sitting on the end of TeamViewer or something, showing him how to do stuff, and or talking him through how to do it himself. But in reality, going, here's the model. This is what I need. See ya. And I told him where to stick it, and I've not done it since. So anyway, right. I am going to stop waffling because I need to go for a pee among other things. Thanks for keeping me company. I will probably stream again tomorrow night because I actually kind of enjoyed this. It's been a bit quiet. I don't know, like I say, tomorrow I'm either going to rip the office apart and rebuild it downstairs, which means I probably won't be on till quite late, or I will unwrap this in the afternoon while it's raining, and I'll start showing it. I don't know if it helps, but I'll do the geolod and stuff in O2 and go through some of that, if that's what you guys want to see, or if you want to see something else, let me know. But I'll tell you now, this building's pissing me off. I'm tired of it. I will say one of the things that's coming up is Farsight has said that he wants to retexture some of the stock-based vehicles to be like rally cars, and we'll do a rally around, like a multiplayer rally around Bovington, because it's some cracking roads to chase each other down. So that should be a scream. Anyway, right, I'm going to go because I need to go for a pee. Thanks very much, guys. I will hopefully see you tomorrow. So have fun, be safe, turn out.
Mic off.